So where did we leave off here? I know you were talking about your pal there with the red. Go ahead.
I went over there to pick up the boat in Cordova back in '74, I believe it was. And, I got my crab block, which they cost $3,500, and somebody made off with it. It was over at Jim Poor's cannery there. He had a floating processor. And he just handed me the keys to his brand new pickup, and I went and got it. He never said a word. But anyway, Cliff Lacey was a harbor master there, and he told me a little bit of a story about Rocky Roswell. He used to own the boat, and he'd come into town to go get drunk and party in Cordova. That was his hometown. And the city had hired a new cop, and the policeman, he went out on the float to meet him when he came in with a boat. He says, "Now, Rocky, we don't want any trouble, and try to, so we'd like to have it calm and, peaceful around here." Rocky grabbed him and he climbed a telephone pole with this guy, and he hung him up off the ground about 20 feet. Now, the harbor master told me this story, so, he was up there hollering all night long until somebody climbed up there and cut his belt with a knife and dropped him down on the ground,
Oh, jeez. That's funny.
Guys like Rocky, Rocky Roswell is what opened up Alaska, is what I'm trying to say. It was guys like him, the pirates and the guys that can actually do things that were exceptional. And I wrote another little book a long time ago called Legends of the North that has a chapter on each one of the people that I knew that were kind of similar, that they did outstanding things under horrible conditions, were able to accomplish amazing things. But anyway, I wrote up all this stuff in the preface of the book, Make Alaska Great Again, so people can understand a little bit how things were in the back history, but it could be edited out. Quite a bit of that material could be chopped down on the preface is 15 pages. I need to cut it back some way or another. I need a professional editor. If somebody wants to get a hold of me, I have a Guard Dog Books page on Facebook. It has its own Guard Dog Books page there. They can leave a message there. I could email copies of the book, and I have emailed a short version of it to every senator and representative earlier, several months ago. And I don't know if any of them ever read it, but maybe a couple of them have. So anyway, one of the things Rocky did is he was a regular pirate, He took one of those big landing crafts, this 135-foot landing craft, triple screw, and he went down to Icy Bay, which is an entrance of southeastern Alaska. It's quite a distance across the Gulf anyway. And he stole a whole bunch of equipment, cats, D8 cats and graders. They had the barge loaded up, and they're heading back to Cordova, and there's a series of islands that you have to pass through to get into Prince William Sound, and one of them's, Hinchinbrook Island, Montague. There's a passage between the two big islands. The barge turned over in a big sea there, apparently, and one of the guys died in the engine room. And Rocky put his canvas diving suit on. They swam ashore on Hinchinbrook Island and built the rest of the crew and built a fire there and waited until somebody came by with a fishing boat and picked them up. And they went back to town, But nowadays they put them in the hospital and all this sort of thing. But these guys are like Supermen, Super tough. Well, anyway, I don't like to brag, but, I fished king crab with that boat 23 years or altogether, quite a few years, and Kodiak and all over myself, so I don't talk about my own exploits. I don't like to.
Yeah.
Anyway, you have to understand that these are the guys that made Alaska great, and built the roads and built the infrastructure and the buildings and brought in the freight, and transported goods and services, mined the gold, and, trapped the wild game, and did outstanding things. And that made it possible for these bureaucrats to come up here and have a job arresting people or, all the drug rehab centers, all the non-productive people that are working up here now, that they have these jobs that don't really produce anything, but they think that they're really necessary to have. And
right.
I got pretty good health care. I got my new titanium hip put in. It cost $185,000 at the hospital, but I didn't have to pay for it. Most of my insurance did, and Medicare, because I'm so darn old.
Well, I'm glad you have that.
And then I had to go in a half heritage house, and they have bicycles or exercise machines for 10 days. I was over there learning how to walk and using how to use a walker and all that other good stuff. But I get around fine now, And anyway, we can talk about a different topic.
Well, so did you finish the book? Let me just ask you real quick. So, is the book "Make Alaska Great Again" finished?
Pretty much. I put this whole area, this preface, 15 pages at the beginning of it. The only thing I got to do now is renumber the chapters, page numbers on the chapters.
Okay.
But if someone prints it or whatever, they got to redo all that again anyway.
Okay. And all of your books obviously are at your, they can go into guarddog.books.com and access it, or alaskapublishing.com. Sounds like.
Right.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask a little bit about, now you said you also wrote about the return of the giants.
So that was really fascinating. It has to do with gold. They came here to mine gold, these Anunnaki gods that gave us everything. They gave us their mathematics, their, healing and architecture. A lot of this architecture, ancient stuff, where did that come from? They even borrowed it and brought it over to Washington, D.C. to like the Lincoln Memorial and the big columns and the granite. And all the ceilings and all the churches, even in Europe, are like 16-foot high or higher, 20-foot high doorways. We got to wondering, why do they build those things so big and high, and what's the purpose of it when the average person was less than 5 feet tall, and herded sheep for a living or goats. So I was reading about all the gold that they mine in South America and Cusco and Pumapuco and Tiwanaku. Those cities are at 12,000 foot altitude. The Lake Titicaca is 10,000 foot altitude. I can, barely, the average person can't hardly breathe at that altitude, let alone build anything. But there are villages up there now, but there's these massive cities made out of blocks of stone that are scattered like Legos. And there's no way to carve them that we know of with our, copper knives or copper chisels and hammers. They didn't have that. They had saws of some kind. So I got interested in that, and I started researching more on it. And some of the buildings were covered with gold. Even in Cusco, there was a Polish archaeologist found some thin gold sheets, and they drilled 1 or 2 millimeter holes in this granite. And they nailed these gold plates over all the buildings. Excuse me, I got a cough. But
okay.
Anyway, he brought one of those gold plates to a lecture. His name was Poznański. And had little nails about 1 inch and 2 inches long, made of gold. Well, anyway, the whole buildings have been looted since then, but all the gold's missing. But I think that Antarctica was connected to South America, and they actually saw remnants of a canal that cut across from the upper reaches of the Amazon River to the Pacific Ocean on Google Earth. Shows up on Google Earth, but the whole continent was raised up for some cataclysm that I talked about in cosmological ice ages. It separated Antarctica and raised Antarctica up several thousand feet. And anyway, the ancient peoples could sail into the Pacific via the Amazon. It was, sea levels were higher. They were at least 300 feet higher before the Ice Age. And this cataclysm, whatever it was, I'm pretty sure it was, I don't want to talk about it, what it was, but it killed off all the camels and horses and mastodons in North America and caused massive volcanism around the world about 11,800 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's interesting that they have gold, some of the rivers there, but it's under 300 feet of gravel. You can't get it with modern machinery. It's just too deep to reach.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the rivers near the Panama Canal have a tremendous amount of gold down deep. There's even gold on the surface. But they these Anunnaki gods could turn that into the white powder of gold and burn it into a white powder. It's an orb, orbitally rearranged monatomic element.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses did the same thing. They could, when they came down from the mountain, they talk about it in Exodus. They built this golden idol, and Moses was very angry, and he told Bezalel to burn it into the white powder and throw it in the creek and stream and make the Hebrew children drink thereof. Well, this stuff has been used for tens of thousands of years. It's probably predates all of history. But it's been kept secret from the general public or from the average person for power and for corruption, because it makes you smarter and makes you live longer by feeding the mitochondria within your human cells to produce more energy for complete cell division. And I wrote a book on that 20 years ago called The Philosopher's Stone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling it the most valuable book on earth, and I've been posting a little one-page blog about this book because it's time to bring it out. You know, we need to wind the DNA up to increase the cell reproduction rate. The only way you can do that is to feed the mitochondria the right substance so that they can produce more energy
Mm-hmm.
for cell reproduction. And they have to replicate their own cells along with your human body cells simultaneously. And all that takes energy. And they produce ATP, which is an energy carrier for sugars and starches that feeds everything. However, it also they're in plants too. They also, it's done the same way in plants.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, they've tested humans all over the world, and they've only found that this 10 years ago was 43 different types of mitochondrial DNA, but I think it's up to 50 now, close to 50, 48 or 49. They've tested mummies all over the Taklamakan Desert, and people all over the world. They can tell who your mother was or what race you came from. Recently, my wife's sister had her DNA tested, and she's 75% Scandinavian and 20% or 25% German, and there's some Greek thrown in there somewhere. So she's got a little darker skin than the rest of her sisters. You know, it's kind of funny. People can get their DNA tested nowadays, but they base it on the mitochondrial DNA, and you inherit these mitochondria from your mother. They're in the egg, you see, before it's fertilized, and they're not passed down by the male. So they can tell who you're, trace it back.
Right.
But I wrote that book 20 years ago, and I'm sort of pushing it. It can be ordered online. Just dial 1-800-BUY-BOOK or type in Philosopher's Stone or my name, Henry Kroll, into Google or into Amazon, either one.
Nice.
And you'll see articles and stuff on it.
So is it on Amazon?
Medical doctors.
Can you get it on Amazon?
Yeah, it's available. Yeah, they have it. You can get it. I get more of a royalty if you just get it from the publisher by dialing 1-877-BUY-BOOK.
Mm-hmm.
It's an 877 number, not 800.
Okay.
So, yeah, I wrote it 20 years ago. I was doing tests on gold ores, and nothing would work out right. You know, there's a lot of these atoms that are in these complex ores. You can't turn it into the metal. But if you treat it right, you can get a lot of recovery out of these ores.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the atoms are bound up in what they call a monatomic. They're two atoms combined with all the protons in the center. And they're in the matrix all mixed up with everything else. And the electrons are orbiting in a ring, and they're part of the matrix, but they're not bound in there very tightly because they can't form electron bonds very well. They have to kind of float around as what they call a monatomic. So they're in the air everyone's currently breathing right now. They're everywhere. They're very numerous. It's not, but you don't get enough of it in your diet to feed the mitochondria. And the reason why the mitochondria like this stuff is this is not proven, of course. It's just my theories on it. Is they have weak atomic forces. There's large particles that are protons. You got double the number in the center nucleus, and they're kind of like magnets of the same polarity, so they push apart. So the nucleus is at least 10 times larger than a normal atom.
Mm-hmm.
But you can separate them and turn them back into the metallic state by adding electrons or energy. And this was happening in an old book that I got written in 1898. They were getting more recovery out of these complex ores and the beach sands by putting them in ball mills and running. You see, energy is never lost. It's got to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they're imparting electrons into these ores, and they're getting more recovery out of them by beating them up in the ball mills, and they'd add a alkaline or potash to the mills, which dissolves the dissolves the metals anyway. That's how plants get their nutrients. They extrude alkaline through their roots, and it takes up all of the trace minerals in the soil with alkaline solution. It's a slow process. And then we use hydrochloric acid in our stomachs to break them down, which is much quicker. That's because we have a faster metabolism. We need energy quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So we use an acid. But plants grow very slowly, and they can get by with using alkaline. The amazing part about it is many of the plants that we do eat, I believe, have been genetically engineered to have a lower alkaline content so that we can eat them.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah.
Now, I've read a lot of crazy stuff online and different things about wheatgrass, and people are drinking this wheatgrass stuff. Well, it doesn't benefit you one iota from what they say, because the only way you can eat grass is if you got a 4-part stomach like a cow.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but anyway, it's to maintain your present body form, you have to replicate about 6 to 8 million body cells a second. And it works out to about 3 billion a minute. And it takes a lot of energy to do that. I find that a lot of that cell reproduction goes on when you're asleep at night. But anyway, it's more so then when you have more energy available after digesting your food, I guess. But to do it properly so that you don't age, it's just an aging process. It's based on the number of base pairs per turn of DNA. When you're conceived, you have 50 base pairs per turn. So the cells divide very quickly. It's wound up very tightly, the DNA, more base pairs per turn. So when you're born, you have 25 base pairs per turn. And at age 20, it unravels a little more. So you got 20 base pairs per turn. And that's the break-even point where you need to keep it at that rate, possibly. And if you, at age 50, you're down to 5 base pairs per turn, and you start losing body cells at an ever-increasing rate. So you need to feed the mitochondria to wind DNA up tighter. You just can't feed them anything. They prefer these large combined atoms that they can manipulate into the proper elements for complete cell division. Mm-hmm. Because they have weak atomic forces, and it's done with magnetic pulses or frequency.
Very interesting.
People don't understand that, and many, they don't teach this in medical school.
Oh, heck no.
And,
no.
And we don't understand how any of this stuff works. If we could take a closer look at these mitochondria and see what's going on an atomic level, we would be totally amazed. It's like little factories, they're doing transmutation of elements because the weak atomic forces allow the transmutation of any element by pulling out protons or adding protons or whatever. And it's to make it proper energy for our body cells. And you can just wind that DNA up a little tighter, and you can maintain an age of 20 years old.
Right. Seems like we're dealing with a lot of toxicity now, though it's very, very difficult to get regenerated.
Well, yeah, a lot of it causes cell damage to your DNA, radiation. You get some cell phones, like the one that's eating my brain right now.
Oh, right,
and, you got all this stuff going on. Years ago, you could tune the FM station dial, and you might get 2 or 3 stations up here, but now you got more like 50.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
All that's EMF, electromagnetic radiation. It does cell damage and damages your DNA. And
yeah, it's not
solar
good.
flares, you name it. Every time Russia dropped a bomb, the kids in my high school, someone would get cancer and die in Seldovia, Alaska. I had a couple of them die of leukemia. I got a lump under my chin when I was in 11th grade, the size of a baseball. We had a doctor there, and he gave me potassium iodine. No, he didn't explain what it did or anything. He says, put 16, 18 drops of this stuff in a glass of orange juice and drink it every day. And what it does, it overloads the pituitary gland so that it doesn't absorb so much radioactivity. Eventually, the lump, went down, dissipated.
Oh, that's good.
But, even the Chernobyl thing is pumping out radiation. Or you got contaminated cow's milk over in Vermont. Kids are drinking radioactive milk from different all over the United States.
Well, the Fukushima thing, that went under the carpet pretty much.
It's still ongoing, and it's, we don't know what it'll do to the salmon either. There's a lot of unknowns here.
Yeah, I remember you telling me they weren't testing the salmon. They're still not testing, are they? For radiation.
Oh, yeah, there's some standard. They're doing all right, but the problem is they're trying to kill off the river because of the greed. The cities make a lot of money selling licenses and hiring people to monitor the dip netters and stuff that come down from Anchorage and other places to get salmon in the Kenai River. And it's just, they got a parking lot and they got guys, Nazi guard shacks, where they collect fees to park your motorhome and
wow,
and collect fees for launching your boat. $30 to launch your boat, $60 to park your motorhome and a day. And people think they get stuff for getting fish for nothing. They think it's free. They don't think about all the gas and the $200,000 motorhome they got to buy to come down here to get 5 or 6 salmon.
Right. There's no such thing as getting away from it all. I'll tell you that much. I always think of Alaska as a place where you can kind of escape everything else, but apparently not, huh?
Well, if you got an airplane or a way to get out in the bush, of course, then you can do it. I have a place across Cook Inlet, and we fish salmon over there for the last 66 years. My dad was there in 1944, and I was 6 months old. And they can fish there. They didn't even sell them to the cannery. He brought his own floating cannery over there on that barge, that 50-foot barge that he built to shrimp. And there's weird pictures of it. It's got a boiler on one end and a fish gutting shed on the other, and the whole thing's cluttered up with a house and whatever. And they can fish on it till 1948, and then he decided to fish for the Snug Harbor Cannery on Chiswick Island. There's a guy emigrated from Sweden and bought the cannery, and they can salmon there. It was the old 1908 is when the salmon cannery was constructed on Chiswick Island, and it was constructed by George Palmer. The town of Palmer is named after him, and he made it for the chief of the Tyonek Indian village so that they would have an economy, someplace to can clams, and they would dig clams over there, razor clams on the Crescent River bars. And they can them there, and then when the Freebrocks took over, Eric Freebrock, they canned salmon later.
That's
the history
interesting.
of it.
Yeah, you know an awful lot. I tell you what, you've been there and you've seen the whole area just kind of change over the years. I'm sure it's nothing like what it used to be.
Well, yeah, the cannery went out of business over there. I put 1 million pounds of salmon in that cannery. You can see that in my book, Make Alaska Great Again. I've got several pictures of myself in there standing on that barge with 2,000 salmon under my feet. And there's one there that shows my dad and my brother there. We got at least 3,000 fish in that one fish period. We caught those in like 15 hours, 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's
wow.
a lot of work,
Yeah, I bet.
We were crazy. We used to work where your mouth would foam up like a draft horse.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's just crazy what we did, in the old days.
I can imagine.
Racing the tide, primarily. We're racing the tide before the nets go dry and all the salmon go dry in the mud and the seagulls start eating them, And we had to work like a dog or worse.
Right. Are you still getting a lot of salmon up there, or how's that?
Yeah, we're doing all right. I didn't fish this summer. I just ran my tender boat, and I've been working on that every day. I have a fiberglass 42-foot boat now, and it's got a Cummins engine, and I replaced the turbocharger, got it rebuilt, and also the starter and the battery. And I'm working on today I was down there, removed the thermostat, and I'm ordering a new thermostat for it because it's running too cold. It's carboning up. It makes soot in the muffler, so when I start my engine up, it blows soot all over the fancy boat next to me, and they get mad at me when I do that.
Yeah,
I can't understand why.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but I have to wash my own decks off there with a bucket because it gets little balls of soot everywhere. Need to bring the temperature up a couple 20 degrees or so on the engine so that doesn't make so much carbon.
Right. Well, I think I asked you before.
Go
ahead.
And having the new turbo would force more air in there too would help considerably. I think.
Right. But you live off the grid, kind of, don't you? Where you're at right now?
Well, we're on the main highway south of Soldotna. We have electric power overhead, but we're not connected to it. I have solar cells and a whole big room full of batteries in our well pump house. We have a bunch of little shacks, cabins. One is a workshop. I have tools in it. My wife has another workshop, and then she has a little store out here we built last year on the highway. We're at mile 105 on the Sterling Highway. That's where we're located. We have milepost signs. Nice. And see the store there.
What's the name of the store?
She makes jewelry. There's some pictures of it on my website or a Facebook page there too on the Guard Dog books. It's really nice stuff she's making.
Yeah, that's great. Aren't you guys teaching classes too, Henry? Weren't you all teaching some kind of course or class or something?
Not really lately. In summers we have to train a lot of people how to fish and handle nets and tie knots and all that stuff.
Well, sounds like you keep yourselves pretty darn busy.
My 50-year-old son, he's turning 50 anyways. He did the fishing last summer. The kid.
At 50, huh? He's a kid, huh?
Yeah. Well, he's on a sailboat right now. He's got a 12-meter sailboat. It's like a 40-foot racing hull. The keel is a big slab of lead. It sticks down underwater. It weighs 6,000 pound lead keel. Weighs more than a Subaru. weighs more than a pickup truck anyway, this piece of lead.
Mm-hmm.
The mast is 50 foot tall, and he couldn't get up. There's no way to climb the mast. So he tied some ladders together. And he was up on there, and he removed the wind vane and a few things on the top of the mast.
Jiminy.
He was scared of height.
Uh-huh. Well, tying two ladders together, it's like, I hope it's sturdy.
3 ladders together. He had 3 ladders tied together.
That's amazing.
He took my extension ladder apart and extended it out all the way, and then tied another 16-foot ladder to the bottom of that. I think he got up there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He had one of the sails on the roller reefing on the front of the sailboat was rotten, so he found a storm jib for that, so he's got a pretty good set of sails now, but he couldn't use what he had. And there's no motors in it, and he brought it around from Seward last spring to Kachemak Bay in Homer. No motors. He's living in the 17th century, like Vitus Bering.
Mm-hmm. Jiminy.
Sailing around with no motors.
Well, I guess it's kind of more like peace of mind, I guess, at this point. It's such a busy world. Who knows? Maybe everybody needs to do that and take a break from the false matrix.
Well, he's not burning any fuel. He doesn't have an engine in the boat.
Right. Yeah.
Right now, we were looking at electric motors to put in the boats, and I found some for sailboats, but they only weigh 30 kilograms, or about 65 pounds, something like that. And then the controller weighs as much as that. But I've been looking at putting some of those motors, or one of them, in a light aircraft, an ultralight aircraft, and powering it with batteries. And they've come up with a new battery this year. It's called a lithium air battery. I'm really excited about it. It weighs 210 pounds, so it would allow you to fly your plane maybe 3 or 4 hours.
That's nice.
I've had 5 different planes in the past. I really like to fly. But at the present time, I don't have a plane, and I'm looking at getting this ultralight and taking the Rotax engine off and the fuel tanks off and mounting this sailboat motor up there. It weighs 65 pounds, and I think it's quite a bit lighter than the Rotax engine. And then the battery weighs 210 pounds. You can get 60 horse out of the motors. They're electric motors to move sailboats around the harbor, and they're marine use, and they got stainless steel mountings. And so I don't know why they wouldn't work for aircraft use. They're permanent magnet electric motors. They weigh less than the reciprocating engine.
Mm-hmm.
You see, when you're flying a conventional airplane, you got about 650 moving parts, and valve tappets and springs and camshafts and pistons and rings and whatever, moving around, and pumps and carburetor stuff, and or fuel injected parts, just magnetos, you name it. And then you got 2 large tanks of flammable liquid above your head, so when you crash, it douches in gasoline and sets you on fire.
Jeez.
If any one of those parts malfunctions, you got to find a place to land.
Mm-hmm.
I've owned 5 planes, so I know about this stuff.
Oh, I bet.
I only crashed one time.
That's good.
Nothing serious,
What caused you to crash?
Well, that's a long story, but, I was hauling groceries over to my homestead across Cook Inlet. We spent 10 winters living in our house over there. We have a 2-story house I built. It's almost 100 feet long, counting the dock in front of it, the deck. And it's 2 stories.
Mm-hmm.
We heat it with wood. And I had a J3 Cub on. I didn't put the skis on right away. And I cheated and thought maybe, I'd get away without skis on the... But anyway, I asked my wife on the phone, how much snow there is on the ground over there. And she says, about 6 inches. Well, there's like 10 inches of hard crust. I landed in it with wheels. I got almost stopped, and then the plane went completely upside down, very slowly. And it hit the tail of, as you go upside down, and dented it in about 3 inches. So that's the only damage it did to the tail, but I broke a wing spar. I had to rebuild one wing on the J3 Cub. So I had a neighbor friend who loaned me some, or gave me some fabric to put on it, and I had to search around to find a spar to replace the old brittle fur that they had used for the spars. You'd think in 1948 that they could find some wood that's 16 feet long to build a wing spar out of, but they didn't. They had it all spliced together.
Mm-hmm.
It was all brittle. But I made this wing a lot stronger than the original and put it back on there, put new covering on it. Took a punch and knocked that piece of metal up on the tail so it looked like normal, and put a little piece of duct tape over the hole. Back in business.
Yep.
But, when you go upside down like that, you got to remember to turn the fuel off so that it doesn't catch fire, hopefully.
Right.
And all your tomatoes and your bananas and your eggs are up around your head because you're carrying groceries in the back,
Oh, no.
And you're mashed down in there. So when you pull your seatbelt in, it mashes your head down into your food. And then you got to open the door and turn around and crawl out on the wing.
Oh, what a drag.
So it was kind of funny. I was laughing when I came out of there, and then you got to figure out a way to turn the plane back up on its wheels again, which is, fortunately I have a bulldozer over there and a gin pole. Us homesteaders, we come up with the darndest things.
Well, that's good.
You ever buy a little bulldozer, you want to weld a pipe collar on the blade and another one down on the side of it somewhere. And you can stick a piece of drill pipe in there, and you've got a sky hook. You can raise that blade up and down,
Mm-hmm.
16 feet or more. You can lift stuff out the end of that piece of steel pipe with this hydraulics on your cat blade. So I just hooked a long piece of rope to that and raised it up in the air as far as it go and put it in third gear in reverse and flipped it back on its wheels.
That's smart.
That's the only way you could do it,
Right. Are you guys growing your own food still, or do you have to go to the store?
Oh, yeah, I had a garden. Yeah, I grew 18 cabbages, and I made about 5 gallons of sauerkraut. And I put too much salt in it, but we can soak it out and eat it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's too salty. But I should have known better. I didn't follow the recipe close enough.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we have a greenhouse, but we don't grow a lot of our own food. We buy most of it from the local supermarkets. We got Fred Meyer down here, 10 miles away. We're 10 miles from Fred Meyer and about the same distance from a hospital.
That's not too bad. So I suspect that the groceries are really high then, or have they gone up even worse?
I don't think they're that bad.
Okay.
I was in Washington State out there a couple of years ago where my mother-in-law lives, and Albertsons or, the various stores there were very high priced, and the meat tasted weird.
Yeah, everything tastes really weird, in my opinion, anyway. Regular grocery stores,
We got good meat here at IGA. I'm astounded at how good it is. It's no grease in a hamburger at all, hardly. It's like, and then I try to get buffalo whenever I can. Fred Meyer has some buffalo, but it's not as good as it was. They put too much fat in it.
Do you do any hunting anymore, or are you still doing that, or no?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'm going to this next year for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Always helps. You kind of save some money.
I haven't got a moose. I haven't killed a moose in a long time, but there's a lot of work. Takes a couple of days just butchering the thing and getting it all packaged and frozen.
They're pretty big. I have a moose that hangs out where I live. It's a big one.
Yeah, they're huge. The ones we get are just. The last one I shot was very large, and actually, I forgot. I actually went hunting with some other guys. We got another one, but we only got a hindquarter out of that one, so we didn't have to worry about processing a lot of meat there. We used my plane to spot it, and then had to hike in quite a ways to get it, and then it was quite a shore packing it out of there.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So land surveyor guy, he wanted to get a moose, so we had to look around to find one, It was, I don't know, about a half a mile or more inland in a swamp, so it was hard carrying it out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I haven't really hunted that much. I probably should. I've been working on other projects, writing books and different things.
Well, hopefully you can get these books rolling. So I hope you can get it. I guess you're really you are looking for an editor for the Make Alaska Great Again, or no?
Yeah, publisher, editor, okay. Yeah.
So if anybody's out there,
got to publish a thing,
Right. If anybody's out there interested, please contact Captain Henry Kroll. And I guess, what's the best way to contact you, Henry?
Yeah, that'd be okay. You can leave a message on my Facebook page or on Guard Dog Books Facebook page, either one. And, an email or something, and I can respond to it and send you a copy of the book or a summary of it or something. And I had one publisher really serious about it, and they spent some money trying to edit it, but then they backed out, and I don't know exactly why. I think it was because they're afraid of some repercussions from the Corrupt Bastards Club in Juneau there, maybe. I don't know.
Did you get any threats or anything when you started writing about this?
No.
Okay, that's good.
No, I sent it to, all the politicians. I emailed it to them all, but I'm not in jail or anything. So, they haven't locked me up yet. But
oh. Yeah, it's crazy.
You're still young, there's still time. So, anyway, I'm so darn old, man. They don't want to bother with me, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, this world's getting crazier by the week, I tell you what. So what's your take on North Korea? Do you have any insight insofar as what you think about the North Korea?
I don't know what they're going to do with him, all we can do is rattle or sword rattling, what do they call it?
Yeah. Saber rattling,
That's all they do. And, basically, Tillerson, they call him T-Rex up here, He was head of Exxon, I guess, president for a long time. Old T-Rex. Rex Tillerson.
Right. Well, it seems to me like things are getting very strange. I'm not sure about you, but I've noticed just it gets weird and more weird each week. So I just hold on for the ride.
Yeah, I just keep trying to maintain an optimistic point of view. I just keep telling my wife. She gets grumpy, I says, things just keep getting better and better,
Yeah. Well, I think the nice part is you can appreciate nature, You can at least be kind of close to the elements to some degree. I think that keeps us more grounded anyway.
Well, yeah. Anyway, I got a dog that I wrestle with. It's half pit bull and half bulldog. It attacks me every time I come in the house. And it's afraid of balloons.
Oh, really? Well,
I blow balloons up and turn them loose. It goes ape.
Oh, the noise. Yeah.
And, then finally she tore up a couple of them recently and popped one, so I don't know. Yeah, we're adding on to our little jewelry store here. I've got a deck built on that. I don't think I'll finish it this year, though. Or maybe next year.
So people can actually visit you at that mile 105 on the Sterling Highway. Is that what you said?
Yeah. We have a bookstore there. I have some books in the store that I've written, and about 500 other books for 50 cents a piece.
Nice.
And I have 1,000 books laying around here. I had some guys ask me, how come I know so much about fishing? Well, halibut, different things. One guy in the Home Depot asked me that. I said, well, I read quite a bit about it, and I've fished halibut for 20 years. Sort of pick up something along the line there.
Yeah.
And, I know the biology of king crab and salmon, and over the years, I've read quite a few books, Of course, I've fished salmon for 66 years, the same sediment site.
Wow.
And I've noticed things that you don't find in books,
Yeah, it's called life experience.
Yeah, even your biologists, they don't seem to understand that, salmon have a reverse osmosis skin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to keep the salt out of their bodies. They live in salt water, right? They have to, in order to drink, they have to absorb the water through their skin. It's kind of like your gray aliens.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so in order to go up in the river, go near the streams where I fish, if you got a lot of rain, we don't catch many fish because they don't like to go in the fresh water because they absorb too much water.
Mm.
It's kind of like they get bloated, so they stay offshore in the saltier water until they can shed their scales and grow a coat of slime. And once they change biologically, then they can go up the river. And then we don't catch them because they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
We like to have them come in close and school up a little bit before they go up the river, and then we can get a few thousand of them. My best load of salmon was over 4,000 fish, red salmon.
Wow.
And I only had one guy helping me, a little guy from New York State, and his name was Jerry. And we had a short fish period where they allowed us to fish between noon and 6 p.m., 6 hours. And I set the first net in 16 inches of water, pushed it out, and it was behind the boat, and my fish were ricocheting off of my hip boots and stumbling through fish. They were so thick.
Wow.
I picked 1,000 fish out of that net and put them on a little scow. And by then it was like 4 in the afternoon. We had 2 hours to get our nets up. And I said to Jerry, we're going to have to start pulling our nets. And we just pulled them up, fish and all. I had 4 skiffs, and we filled all 4 skiffs up. I had about 1,500 or 2,000 on a little scow, 30-foot scow. And
That's
pushed
awesome.
the whole thing down toward Snug Harbor for the outdrive I had in one of the skiffs. They're 20-foot skiffs. We had to pick fish all night long until 8 o'clock the next morning. We're cleaning out those nets. And I was threw the last fish up on the tender at 8 o'clock. It felt like a ton, that last salmon.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine. Well, it's hard work.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Oh, it is. That was, Jerry says that's the hardest I ever worked.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can
Jerry
imagine.
Wells is his name. So, a little guy from New York. He'd drive up here in a junk car every year.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. Well, that would be a lot of money nowadays. That's about 24,000 fish like that. Is they're 7 pound average. It's 28,000 pounds at almost $55,000 in one day.
Wow.
Nowadays at $2 a pound. You see, That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
See, I used to make a lot of money fishing salmon. I make maybe $100,000 gross, and then we go fish king crab August 10th, and I'd get 190,000 pounds of king crab at 50 cents a pound. So with a bigger boat. And so we lived good, and I hired people. I mean, furnished jobs for people. I was paying my crew hands $28,000 a year, a couple of them. And we lost a lot of our resources. We lost all the crab and shrimp because of all of the oil and all of the toxins and algae that they brought in, bacteria, nematodes, and 8 oil well blowouts. And then the city of Anchorage processes 20 million gallons of water in their water treatment plant. Half of that turns into sewage, and some of it's mixed with Roundup and fertilizer and goes into the inlet,
Wow.
And then we got another cities of Palmer, Talkeetna, and Wasilla, another 20 million gallons a day. And then we got an antifreeze dump at the international airport where they dump alcohol. And I think the beluga whales come up there to get drunk,
Oh, really?
And turning an arm. Well, I'm just, I'm exaggerating there a little bit there.
You never know at this point in the continuum.
You never know. But anyway, they're worried about the belugas disappearing, It's because we haven't had any late runs of silvers, and they used to eat the silver salmon. But we had a tremendous run this year. There's all kinds of silvers. Late fish.
Well, that's great.
But anyway, the beluga population is way down, and they're all worried about it. They got another $1.5 million or $1.25 million of do research on it recently, some idiot. Anyway,
Well,
there's other pollution. We got thousands of tons of road salt that all leaches into the Cook Inlet.
Mm-hmm.
This calcium chloride.
Oh, yeah. That's
And,
nasty.
it all adds up. It just the human impact on the environment will probably destroy the Kenai River with selling licenses and greed for the dip netters and the tourists, and they'll be fighting over it for years.
Mm-hmm.
But they've already wiped out all the things that spawn in the shallow water. All your shrimp and the crab, they spawn in 2 or 3 fathoms, which a fathom is 6 feet,
Mm-hmm.
And then the halibut come in the shallow water and eat the king crab when they're molting. They got to change their shell every year in order to grow. And their shell turns into kind of like jello. That when the crab back out of the old shell, they're very tender. They're kind of like jello, and the halibut can munch them on down real easy.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we've got halibut is because they spawn in the Gulf of Alaska, and they're not affected by pollution. The eggs spawn in 400 fathoms, and they float up. They're neutrally buoyant to 350 fathoms. The reason I know this is because the University of Washington and International Pacific Halibut Fishing Commission have been doing research since the 1800s on halibut. They tow silks, trawl screens through the water in various localities to find out, what's there.
Mm-hmm.
Been doing it for a very long time. University of Washington. And
Interesting. Well, you know what, Henry? We're just about out of time here. We've got about 2 minutes plus or minus. So before we sign off, I have to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know you're busy writing, and I encourage everybody to support your work and purchase your books. And also, if they want to help out with the editing or whatever, certainly contact you. So what's the best way, once again, to look you up and contact you and purchase your books?
Well, you can go on Guard Dog Books and just click on the book, and some of them I can run off and mail them, UPS or second day air. And also you can get Philosopher's Stone by dialing 1-877 buy book.
Nice.
And I also have a Facebook page for Guard Dog Books, and
Excellent.
I'm on Facebook too, So
yeah, you are. Well, Captain Henry, it's been a pleasure to interview you again. You have a wonderful day and night up there in the Alaskan area. And everybody, thank you for tuning in tonight. Stay tuned for Shiny Side Out coming up right here. And I believe they're going to have some exciting conversation talking about the origins of language. So everybody have a great weekend. And until next time, thank you again, Henry. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution. Radio. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents.